What's up, Star Wars fanatics? Welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the galaxy far, far away. Today, we're journeying back thousands of years before the Empire, before the Republic, even before the Jedi and Sith as we know them. We're exploring the lost history of the ancient Sith Lords, the legendary figures who shaped the very foundation of the dark side. Ajunta Pall, Marka, Ragnos, and Naga Sadow. These aren't just names carved in stone tombs on Korriban. These are the architects of Sith philosophy, the founders of an empire that would echo through millennia. Let's begin our journey with the man who started it all, Ajunta Pall. But here is the thing that makes his story so fascinating. He didn't start as a Sith. He was once a Jedi Master, one of the most respected members of the ancient Jedi Order. We're talking about events that happened approximately 7,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Picture this: the Jedi Order, as we know it, was still young, still finding its way. And Ajunta Pall, he was brilliant, so brilliant that he achieved the rank of Jedi Master and began delving into the deepest mysteries of the Force. But Pall's curiosity led him down a dangerous path. He became obsessed with Force alchemy, the ability to create and shape life itself through the Force. To the Jedi Council, this wasn't just dangerous research, it was an abomination. They saw it as a violation of the natural order, a corruption of the Force's true purpose. When the Jedi Order discovered what Pall was doing, they didn't just ask him to stop, they expelled him. But Pall wasn't alone. He had followers, other Jedi who believed in pushing the boundaries of what the Force could do. These fallen Jedi became known as the Dark Jedi, and Ajunta Pall became their leader. This moment, this schism, was called the 100-Year Darkness, and it changed the galaxy forever. Because, when the dust settled, these Dark Jedi wouldn't just disappear into the shadows. They would find something, or someone, that would transform them into something far more dangerous. After their defeat by the Jedi Order, Ajunta Pall and his Dark Jedi followers were exiled from Republic space. They wandered the galaxy, searching for a new home, until they discovered a world that would become legendary in the annals of Sith history. Korriban wasn't empty. It was home to the Sith species, a red-skinned, Force-sensitive people who had built their own civilization. But here's where the story gets really interesting. When Ajunta Pall and his Dark Jedi arrived, the Sith people didn't see invaders. They saw gods. Think about it from their perspective. These mysterious beings arrived from the stars wielding incredible power through the Force. Power that dwarfed anything the Sith species had ever seen. To them, these weren't fallen Jedi, they were divine beings, worthy of worship. And Ajunta Pall, he embraced this role completely. He became not just their leader, but their ruler, their king. He took the title that would echo through history, Dark Lord of the Sith. This wasn't just a political move. It was the birth of an entirely new philosophy, a new way of understanding the Force. What happened next was unprecedented. The Dark Jedi intermarried with the Sith species, creating a hybrid culture that combined Jedi knowledge of the Force with Sith mysticism and traditions. Ajunta Pall wasn't just ruling over the Sith. He was creating a new species, a new way of life that would survive for millennia. Under Pall's leadership, the Sith Empire was born. He established the traditions, the hierarchies, the very foundations upon which all future Sith would build. The Valley of the Dark Lords on Korriban, where the greatest Sith would be entombed. The concept of Sith Lords ruling through strength and cunning, all of this traces back to Ajunta Pall. Fast forward through centuries of Sith civilization, and we come to perhaps the greatest Dark Lord the Sith Empire ever produced, Marka. If Ajunta Pall was the founder, then Marka was the perfecter, the ruler who took everything Pall had built and elevated it to heights that would never be matched again. Ragnos ruled during what historians call the Golden Age of the Sith, a period of unprecedented prosperity, power, and expansion for the Sith Empire. But don't think this was some peaceful time of growth. Ragnos earned his throne through ruthless campaigns against his Sith enemies, proving that he was not just powerful in the Force, but a brilliant military strategist. What made Ragnos special wasn't just his power, though by all accounts he was incredibly strong in the dark side. It was his wisdom. He understood something that many Sith Lords after him would forget. True power comes not just from strength, but from knowing how to use that strength effectively. Under Ragnos's rule, the Sith Empire expanded to control multiple star systems. He established the Sith Council, creating a governmental structure that allowed the Empire to function efficiently, while still maintaining the Sith philosophy of rule through strength. The Empire grew wealthy, its fleets grew mighty, and its dark side practitioners grew in number and power. But here's what makes Ragnos truly legendary. His reign lasted over a century. In a culture where assassination and betrayal were not just common but expected, Marka Ragnos held power for more than 100 years. That's not just strength, that's unprecedented political acumen. When Ragnos finally died, of natural causes, which in itself was remarkable for a Sith Lord, he was entombed with honors befitting his status. His tomb in the Valley of the Dark Lords became a place of pilgrimage for Sith throughout the ages. Even thousands of years later, his spirit would continue to influence events, appearing to guide and judge those who sought to claim the mantle of Dark Lord. But every golden age must come to an end, and when Marka Ragnos died, the question became, who would be worthy to follow the greatest Dark Lord in Sith history? Two candidates emerged, representing two very different visions for the future of the Sith Empire: Ludo Kresh and Naga. Ludo Kresh represented the old guard, conservative, cautious, focused on preserving what the Empire had already achieved. But Naga Sadow, he was pure ambition incarnate. Sadow looked at the vast unexplored galaxy and saw not unknown dangers, but unlimited opportunities for conquest. The confrontation came to a head at Ragnos's own funeral. Picture this scene. The greatest Dark Lords of the Sith gathered to honor their fallen emperor, and right there in the sacred Valley of the Dark Lords, two would-be successors ignited their lightsabers and dueled for the right to rule. This wasn't just a personal rivalry. This was a fundamental disagreement about what the Sith Empire should become. Should they be content with ruling their corner of the galaxy, or should they expand outward, claiming everything they could reach? The answer would reshape galactic history. Naga Sadow was victorious, but his rise to power came at a cost. The Sith Empire was divided, weakened by internal conflict, just at the moment when Sadow wanted to launch his grand expansion. But if you think that stopped him, you clearly don't understand the Sith mentality. Sadow was more than just a powerful Force user. He was a master manipulator and strategist. He had spent years building a power base from his secret citadel on the moon, Kashyyyk, becoming one of the most skilled Sith magicians of his time. He knew how to use Sith alchemy, how to command through fear and respect, and, most importantly, how to see opportunities where others saw only problems. With the throne of the Sith Empire secure, Naga Sadow set his sights on the greatest prize of all: the Republic itself. What followed was the Great Hyperspace War, the first major conflict between the Sith Empire and the Galactic Republic. A war that would establish the template for every Jedi-Sith conflict that followed. Now, you have to understand the context here. The Republic and the Sith Empire had been completely isolated from each other for over a millennium. Each side knew the other existed, but hyperspace travel was dangerous and unpredictable. They were like two civilizations developing on separate continents, each growing powerful in their own way. But Sadow was a visionary. He saw that isolation wouldn't last forever, and he wanted to make sure that when contact was inevitable, it would be on Sith terms. So he began planning the most ambitious military campaign in galactic history up to that point. The Great Hyperspace War wasn't just about military might, though Sadow certainly had that. His fleets were massive, his armies were well-trained, and his Sith warriors were fueled by the dark side of the Force. But what made Sadow truly dangerous was his understanding of psychological warfare. Sadow didn't just want to defeat the Republic, he wanted to terrify them. His forces struck multiple worlds simultaneously. Coruscant, Corus Magia, Kira. The Republic had never faced anything like this coordinated assault by dark side users. Jedi, who had known only peace, suddenly found themselves facing enemies who drew power from hatred and rage. But here's where Sadow's story becomes truly tragic. Despite his brilliant strategy, despite the power of his forces, despite his own incredible abilities as a Sith Lord, the Great Hyperspace War ended in disaster for the Sith Empire. The Republic's counterattack was devastating. Led by Jedi heroes and Republic admirals, they didn't just repel Sadow's invasion. They pursued him all the way back to Sith space. The war that was supposed to establish Sith dominance over the galaxy, instead, resulted in the near-complete destruction of everything the Sith Empire had built over centuries. Korriban, the sacred homeworld of the Sith, was bombarded from orbit. The Valley of the Dark Lords, where Ajunta Pall and Marka Ragnos lay entombed, was left in ruins. Temples that had stood for 1,000 years were reduced to rubble. The Sith species, the original inhabitants who had welcomed the Dark Jedi so long ago, were nearly driven to extinction. Naga Sadow himself barely escaped. With only a handful of followers, he fled to the remote moon of Yavin 4, where he built a new temple and went into exile. The mighty Sith Empire that had once controlled multiple star systems was reduced to a single hidden outpost in an unexplored system. But here's the thing about the Sith. They don't give up, and they don't forget. Even in defeat, even in exile, Naga Sadow continued to plan and scheme. He used his remaining years to explore new applications of Sith alchemy and to preserve the knowledge and traditions of the Sith for future generations. On Yavin 4, Sadow built temples that would endure for millennia. He created Sith holocrons, repositories of dark-side knowledge that would teach future generations of Sith. And perhaps, most importantly, he established the principle that would guide Sith philosophy for thousands of years. That temporary defeat is just another opportunity to grow stronger. So what happened to these three legendary Sith Lords? Did their stories end with death and defeat? Absolutely not. In many ways, their greatest achievements came after their deaths, as their legacies shaped every Sith who came after them. Ajunta Pall's tomb on Korriban became a place of pilgrimage. Future Sith Lords would come to pay their respects and seek guidance from his spirit. Even thousands of years later, during the Old Republic era, powerful Sith like Revan would encounter Pall's Force ghost and learn from the founder of the Sith Order. The philosophy that Ajunta Pall established, that the strong should rule, that the Force should be used to achieve personal power, that emotions like anger and hatred are sources of strength, rather than weaknesses, became the foundation for every Sith teaching that followed. Marka Ragnos's influence was even more direct. His spirit remained active on Korriban, appearing to judge and guide potential Dark Lords. The governmental structures he created, the concept of a Sith Council, The idea that the Sith Empire should be both militarily powerful and culturally sophisticated, all of these ideas would resurface again and again throughout Sith history. And Naga Sadow, his temples on Yavin 4, would eventually become the base of operations for Emperor Palpatine himself. The same moon where Sadow had fled in defeat became the staging ground for the Death Star's attack on the Rebel Alliance. His Sith holocrons and alchemical experiments influenced dark side practitioners for millennia. But the influence of these ancient Sith Lords goes beyond just inspiring future dark side users. Their actions literally shaped the galaxy we see in the movies. The Great Hyperspace War established the fundamental conflict between Jedi and Sith that would play out for thousands of years. Think about it. When Palpatine manipulates the Clone Wars to gain power, he is using political strategies that trace back to Naga Sadow's understanding of how to turn enemies against each other. When Vader rules through fear and intimidation, he's following principles that Marka Ragnos perfected during the Golden Age of the Sith. Even the Rule of Two, established by Darth Bane, was a direct response to the failures of the ancient Sith. Bane looked at what happened to Naga Sadow's empire, how internal conflicts, and too many ambitious Sith, led to its destruction, and decided that the Sith needed a completely different approach. The ancient Sith Lords proved something that modern Sith never forgot, that the dark side of the Force isn't just about individual power. It's about understanding how power works on a galactic scale, how to build institutions that can survive and thrive, and how to turn defeat into eventual victory. So what made Ajunta Pall, Marka Ragnos, and Naga Sadow different from the countless other dark side users throughout galactic history? Why are these three remembered as legends while others are footnotes? First, they were builders, not just destroyers. Sure, they were incredibly powerful in combat, but their real achievements were institutional. Ajunta Pall didn't just defeat the Jedi Order in battle, he created an entirely new philosophy of Force use. Marka Ragnos didn't just conquer territory, he built a sustainable empire that lasted for centuries. Second, they understood that true Sith power comes from combining individual strength with strategic thinking. Naga Sadow wasn't just a powerful Force user, he was a master of logistics, intelligence gathering, and military planning. These weren't dark side berserkers. They were sophisticated leaders who happened to draw their power from the dark side. Third, they each learned from failure in ways that made them stronger. When Ajunta Pall was expelled from the Jedi Order, he didn't retreat. He found a way to build something greater. When Naga Sadow was defeated in the Great Hyperspace War, he used his exile to explore new forms of Sith knowledge. But perhaps, most importantly, they understood something that many modern Sith forgot, that the dark side isn't just about personal power. It's about reshaping the galaxy according to your vision. They weren't just trying to become strong, they were trying to create a universe where their way of understanding the Force would triumph permanently. Now, here's something really cool. We're not just talking about legends here. The archaeological evidence for these ancient Sith Lords is extensive and fascinating. The tombs in the Valley of the Dark Lords on Korriban, the temples on Yavin 4, the Sith holocrons and artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy. All of this provides concrete proof of their achievements. Take Ajunta Pall's sword, for example. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a masterpiece of Sith alchemy, imbued with dark side energy that persisted for millennia after its creator's death. The craftsmanship, the Force techniques used in its creation, the way it channeled and focused dark side power, all of this tells us that the ancient Sith were far more sophisticated than simple barbarians with lightsabers. The temples and tombs themselves are equally impressive. These weren't just burial sites, they were complex Force-sensitive structures designed to preserve and amplify dark-side energy. The geometry, the materials used, the way they were positioned relative to natural force nexuses. Everything was carefully calculated to maximize their effectiveness. And the holocrons, these pyramid-shaped repositories of knowledge, were perhaps the greatest achievement of ancient Sith technology. They could store not just information, but actual Force impressions, allowing future generations to receive training directly from long-dead Sith masters. So there you have it, the incredible, complex, and absolutely fascinating history of the ancient Sith Lords. Ajunta Pall, the fallen Jedi who became the founder of a new order. Marka, Ragnos, the wise emperor who created a golden age of Sith civilization. And Naga Sadow, the ambitious visionary whose reach exceeded his grasp, but whose influence shaped galactic history. These weren't just powerful Force users, they were architects of civilization, philosophers of power, and strategic thinkers whose ideas influenced the galaxy for thousands of years. Every time you see a Sith Lord in the movies, every time you hear about the eternal conflict between light and dark, you're seeing the echoes of what these three ancient masters built. Their story teaches us something profound about the nature of legacy. True power isn't just about what you can accomplish in your own lifetime. It's about creating ideas and institutions that can outlive you, that can continue to grow and influence the universe long after you're gone. The ancient Sith Lords understood this better than almost anyone in galactic history. They built, not just for themselves, but for eternity. And in that sense, they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. What do you think? Are these ancient Sith Lords the most fascinating figures in Star Wars history? Do their achievements make them more impressive than modern Sith like Palpatine or Vader? And which of the three do you find most compelling? The founder, Ajunta Pall, the Emperor, Marka, Ragnos, or the visionary Naga Sadow? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more deep dives into Star Wars lore, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content exploring the galaxy far, far away. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, remember, the dark side is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. May the Force be with you from a certain point of view.